The New York Mets took an interesting approach to the season in the offseason, threw tons of money everywhere, signed big name free agents, took this approach where, hey, we got a new owner, we're going all in. And I'm talking about they had one of the highest payrolls in baseball. They were just going crazy, which we know causes a lot of haters and obviously gets your fans excited. We also know from the history of it, in the past, it doesn't always work out. And when it doesn't work out, those haters get really loud. Those fans get really mad. So it's this weird gift and a curse type of situation when you spend a lot of money as a team and whether you win or lose, right? In any case, when you win, fans are happy and haters are haters. When you spend money, a lot of money, and you lose at something, then the haters are really loud. Then the fans are really annoyed because now they're really bummed out because they had such high hopes. They had such high expectations. The Mets failed to live up to those expectations, right? The New York Mets, they threw all that money around. They still failed at their goal, which was building a World Series contender. Now they flipped the script. They sent some big names back in order to rebuild the farm system, replenish the youth on the team, give themselves a better future outlook, a longer run is what they're looking for. A longer run. If they're looking for not Super Bowls. If they're looking for World Series, they want a longer run at it, right? With the players they had, they felt like, hey, we had a 1 year, 2 year window. We get rid of those players. We get younger players in. We build the farm system up. We build the prospects up. Now we have a window, but we feel like it's a longer run. And so, that's the view that they took, the approach they took. Let's look at, what they did in a kind of digestible form rather than look, because they did a lot of trading. Let's kind of look at it, in an easy way to kind of digest all of it, since this would be the easiest way to do it. All right. So the Mets decided to do this, right? They traded a ton of players and they got back even more players, right? Now let's keep it there. All right. So they're receiving Luis Angel Acuna, Drew Gilbert, Ryan Clifford, Marco Vargas, Justin Jarvis, Ronald Hernandez, Jeremy Rodriguez, Jeremiah Jackson, Phil Bickford, Adam Kolarek. Leaving, these are going to be the names you're more familiar with: Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, David Robertson, Mark Canha, Tommy Pham, Dominic Leone. Money, 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 and more money. Why do you say that, Neil? Why do you mention money? What is the money thing about? The reason I mentioned money going out for the Mets is that in normal situations, you're trading player for player. Sometimes there's cash considerations involved. It's not usually groundbreaking, earth shattering type stuff, right? In this case, it is. In this case, it's very interesting what the Mets did financially in these trades. This tweet from Front Office Sports: the Mets are now paying former players over $150 million. That would rank 17th among 2023 MLB payrolls. You heard that. They're paying former players. That list I just showed you are the players who left. The Mets are paying them still. So the Mets are playing on their roster $153.2 million. What their Mets are playing not on their roster, $151.8. This is crazy, right? So this is why this is an interesting topic, because the Mets traded these players, but in order to get very good prospects, top of the line prospects from teams' farm systems, they had to pay the salaries of a lot of these players they traded out. So Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, they threw tens of millions of dollars in those deals to make this happen. Typically, as you're familiar with, in Major League Baseball, you trade a player, or in a lot of sports, basically, you trade a player with a high salary, you don't really get much back because you're looking at it as we're dumping salary. You're, helping us with that. You're alleviating that salary for us. And so we don't really take much back. We just want you to take the salary. That's the goal. Well, the Mets took an interesting approach, and we're trading the player, this ace, right? This elite player, we're trading him to you. It has a fat salary along with it. We'll pay that salary. We'll pay a good majority of that salary. You can keep him. All we want is one of your best prospects. And the teams took it because those teams are looking at it as, hey, we're trying to compete for a World Series right now. We're trying to win right now. So you can have the prospect who may or may not pan out. You can take that prospect. You can pay the salary of the guy you're giving us, and we'll use his skills over here to try to win a World Series. You don't see it a lot because most teams aren't willing to do that, right? Most teams aren't willing to take on that burden of, paying the salary along with trading the player. It's not a typical approach. It's very interesting. It's very different. I like it though. I like it. Let's see. I have some some other quotes and stuff here from the Mets owner, and I'm curious. I think it's worth sharing. I think it's good stuff. I think it kind of gives a better idea of the approach here, what they're trying to pull off. If you're gonna have a 12%, if you're gonna have a 12% of getting into the playoffs, those are pretty crummy odds. This is from SNY TV. I wouldn't want to be putting any money on that. I wouldn't want to bet any money on that, and I don't think anybody else would either. Hope is not a strategy. I like that. Hope is not a strategy. A lot of teams do bank on the hope. And they probably do stuff for a lot longer than they should have because they're banking on that hope. It keeps them in that lull of like not winning enough, not losing enough. So you're just kind of in the middle because they keep hoping that this is going to turn around. They keep hoping that they're going to hit those slim odds. And so that's a very, important quote coming from the owner of the Mets. He also said the expectations were really high this year, and my guess is next year will be a lot lower. I don't want to roll a team out there that's going to be embarrassed by, that we're going to be embarrassed by. He says he thinks the Mets will be highly competitive next season. This coming off the back of Max Scherzer going to the Rangers in his meeting saying they said they're not going to be competitive next year. So I said, okay, I'm cool being traded. I'll waive my no trade clause. If you're not going to be competitive, that's what I came here for. Some people were kind of like, Max Scherzer says they told him this. The owner's now saying, hey, we expect to be competitive. We don't want to be not competitive. Think the plan changed. We won't have Max Scherzer. We won't have Justin Verlander. We won't have these other vets that were being, playing productive. We're going younger. So the expectations are a lot lower, at least from the outside organizational people. But we expect to be highly competitive. So some people are kind of, think that the Mets lied to Max Scherzer to get him out of there. Lied to Justin Verlander to get them out of there. I don't know, but I do respect what he's saying. I the fact that he wants to stay competitive, I think that's why you still have a Pete Alonso, you still have a Francisco Lindor, you still have a few veterans out there. They didn't trade everybody. Jeff McNeil. Again, they got a lot of young players that are really coming up, so they're excited about those guys. They're definitely going to need starting pitching. They're definitely still got to sign some players. Those young guys they traded for aren't all going to be ready to make a playoff run instantly, make a World Series run instantly. So they're obviously going to have to make signings. I think they just wanted these guys out of here. Some of them had no trade clauses. They had to, do what they had to do to get rid of them. And in this case, they created a way to still get young players back. And it's costing them a lot of money, but it's what they did. A unique approach, if you will. Don't want to be a hater. Don't want to, put the bad news out there, but Max Scherzer did give up 3 runs in the first inning in his Ranger debut. So for Mets fans, I am a Mets fan, so this is a topic more dear to my heart. I don't want to hate on the guy. I'm not hating on him, but this is exactly what he's been doing all season. This is why, the team looked to move on, right? Like this is kind of the idea. My thing is this, right? I was never a fan of signing 40-year-old athletes to massive contracts, whether it's the Mets, whether it's NFL, whether it's NBA. It's not my thing. Same thing when, the idea of Tom Brady, to be a Raiders quarterback, not my thing. Not hating on the players. They're obviously elite. They're obviously very good. That's why they're, getting these fat contracts, and that's why, people want them, but it's just not my preferred approach. It's not the way I want to build a team, right? The Mets realized at the deadline that they failed at their process here, right? Their idea of throwing money at a bunch of, vets, mixing it in with their team, getting all this to work. It didn't pan out, right? They 100% bailed on that. I respect it. I seen someone mention it. I forget who it was. I think it was on Twitter, but I appreciate that they committed just as equally to this rebuild. The same way they were throwing money all around, signing all these vets, chase a World Series. They are now equally committed to replenish the team with youth, give them a longer stretch to compete and, to try to get a World Series in a bigger window, in another way. Again, they felt they had like a 1-2 year window with Verlander, Scherzer, all these guys. Now they feel like, hey, if we can get this team still to be competitive, get them younger, replenish the farm system, we can do this longer. 4-year window, 5-year window, 6-year window. Who knows? So that's the goal. But I respect that the way they went all in, throwing money around, signing contracts, they're doing the same thing to rebuild. Too many teams hold on way too long to the way that isn't working. So I won't knock this approach because I'm a fan of teams who have, and I've watched teams do it. We all see it happen where they're like that middle of the road team. They don't get early draft picks. They don't win World Series. They don't get early draft picks. They don't win NBA championships. They're just like in the middle, floating around. And that's not the position you want to be. You either want to be really good, really elite, top 5 team, top 4 team, top 3 team, or you want to be really bad to get that rebuild going, get the higher draft picks, that kind of stuff. Get that rebuild going. The Mets are in this place where they can kind of do both. They have young players. They just did a situation to get a whole bunch of young players, but they got all the money in the world. The owner doesn't mind spending it. So they're a very unique situation. Most Major League Baseball teams cannot or would not make this approach. But I am curious, as always, your thoughts. Drop them in the comments. If you like what the Mets did, I want to hear it. If you hate what they did, you would never want your team to take that approach, let me hear it. Or if you're just enjoying watching the Mets struggle, right? Because everyone loves to see a team that spent a bunch of money, spent all the bread on their championship hopes, and then failed. No one loves to see that more in sports. Fans love it. So if you're just sitting back watching the Mets lose, fall apart, if you will, watching them fall apart and you're enjoying it, put that in the comments too. I want to hear it. I want to hear from you. Drop it in the comments. Let's continue the conversation down there. Those are all valid, point of views to take. It's not crazy. It's not a crazy approach. So I get it. I get it if that's how you feel.